I just finished reviewing my Marushan Winchester 1892, which I've been meaning to do for a while. And I've got to say, I've been very spoilt with the rare kind of classic American West kind of style guns recently. Because as well as getting my Winchester, you might have seen that video already, I also managed to get my hands on something even more rare, lesser seen, which I was really happy to come across and actually got for a very good price. And it is this HWS, also known as Hartford. A lot of you probably haven't heard of that company, but they mainly make model guns, but they also make a few airsoft guns. So it's an HWS Remington New Model Army Percussion Carbine. HWS, as I said, are mainly a model gun manufacturer in Japan who make models that plug fire caps. So kind of cap guns, model guns, all that. They also do make a few airsoft guns. One of their sort of main lines of airsoft guns that they're known for is the Remington New Model Army revolver series. Most of them are traditional revolvers. As you can see, this is the Carbine, which is even rarer. Don't believe any of them are in production anymore. This one even lesser because they didn't make very many of these. Make a couple of other guns as well. They also make a Winchester series, which is, again, very rare, hard to find. But a very high quality Japanese company. And I was incredibly lucky to find this piece. So, as usual, get a gun out of the way to start. Have a look at the box. It's obviously passed a few hands and it's a little bit battered, but it's still nice that it did come with a box. A little bit of information there. Airsoft gun. You can see it is expensive, or at least it was when it was released. This is quite a few years old. I think this is a 2007 one. So, just under 50,000 yen. Like I normally say, convert it to dollars, you take off the last two, and that's the dollar price. So, $499. Sure enough, Hong Kong sites, when these were available, did sell them for about $500. However, they've been unavailable for quite some time. They only did one production run of these, and I believe they made under 1,000 of them. I haven't got any solid info because there are so few of these around. I've never seen one in person. I've never seen one in the UK. I've never seen one online in the UK. So not a lot of people have these. So it comes with this little packet. We've got Japanese warranty information. Usual kind of stuff, you know, don't shoot your dog with it, don't shoot cars with it. Usual kind of stuff. All in Japanese, of course. And this is very nice. I've never seen an airsoft gun with come with a certificate before. And it is pretty poor English translation. HWS New Model Army Revolver Carbine is certified to manufacture under serious study and investigation of actual design and system. So what they mean there is they've studied the real Remington, and this is a very faithful replica after serious study. Little picture of it there. Now this is serial number 107. I find this really cool. I'm not sure why. There's something about knowing what number it is. And this was the 107th gun out of the factory. And as I said, I believe they made under 1,000 of them, so you don't see these very often at all. And it also says when it's made, October 2008, a little bit newer than I thought, but still, they have not been made since then. They only did one production run of these, and I don't believe they have plans of making any more anytime soon. So it's a similar situation to Tanaka, who make small batches and then discontinue it. On the subject of Tanaka, the HWS Remington pistols, revolvers, use Tanaka's single action army Pegasus system. Well, not single action, they just use Tanaka's gas system. They kind of licensed it, they pay Tanaka, so they actually use the same mock sort of bullet gas in the cylinder method. So, the gun is quite nicely packaged in here, quite a slim box, not very big, and that's because the gun itself is very slim, very slender. As you can see here, hopefully, as you will agree, this is an absolutely beautiful gun. I know I say that a lot in my reviews, but I buy attractive guns. That's just what makes me buy them. I don't buy them because they have high FPS or whatever. I just buy them because they look good, mostly. So yeah, you've got lots going on this gun, lots to talk about. As you can obviously see, this is the Carbine version. It is solid wood, which always makes me happy. I really do not like wood effect. The only wood effect I've really been happy with is on maybe a pistol, like TM 1911s come with decent wood effect panels, but certainly something like this just wouldn't be right with a plastic stock. Quite a long gun. It's an 18-inch barrel, which is a little bit shorter than the 20-inch Winchester I just reviewed. Little bit of very brief potted history on the gun. It's known as the 1858, the line of Remington percussion revolvers. However, they weren't made until the 1860s. They were popular in the Civil War and were a direct competitor to the Colt revolvers. Something that made them a little bit better is that they have a top strap. The Colts did not have that, and it makes the design very, very strong and powerful. They were in 44 caliber. Most of the Colts were kind of 36 caliber, similar size Colts. And again, these were comparatively stronger because of that top strap. They started making the carbines after the Civil War because Colt and other companies had already been making carbines, and they thought it might be a good idea to make a long version of their revolver. However, these sold very poorly, and that was because by the time the war was over, you had options like the Winchester, the Henry rifles, you had the Sharps rifles, a whole host of repeating carbines that really made a cap and ball revolving rifle just obsolete. These were never popular. However, they've had a little bit of a resurgence. The Italian company Uberti makes a replica of these, and I believe that HWS probably based this replica on the replica. So it's a copy of a copy. I'm just judging that by the style of loading, ramrod, barrel length, the way the rear sight's sort of built. It seems more of a replica of the Uberti, which isn't a bad thing. The replicas are good quality. And they're actually one of the rifles you could probably get in the UK. On a Section 1, you could probably get a percussion carbine because they're a little bit more lax with muzzle loading guns. Anyway, very attractive as you can see. It's got lots of features that I absolutely love on a rifle, like the solid wood stock, really nice grain. It's taken a few little knocks over the years, but generally good condition. Something else I absolutely love to see is a little bit of sort of contrast. So we've got, just like on the Winchester, you've got a nice brass coloured lower frame portion there. You've also got a little bit of colour case hardening on the loading ramrod thing there. And an octagonal barrel. Absolutely love that 8-sided design. Looks really classic. Yeah, great looking gun overall. So, how did I come across this? Because they haven't been made for a very long time. It's not something you can simply buy. You might have seen my review a while back of my Tanaka R8 Jupiter revolver. It's an 8-shot Smith & Wesson, very cool. Essentially, I get sort of sick of guns quite quickly when I don't use them much, and that gun had been sitting in a box for quite a while. I decided to put it up for sale, and somebody offered me this for it as a pretty much close to a straight swap. I think I paid about £20 on top. So total investment, the cost of the revolver, I had it for sale for about £250. So I paid around £250 for this, which is an excellent deal for something like this. Right, so as usual, I'll start going over the features. This side of the gun's a little bit plain, there's not a whole lot going on, but it's got a very nice octagon barrel. Something that surprised me actually is I believe the pistol, no, I keep saying pistol, not the right word. I think that the short revolver, the short versions of this, the handgun versions, have a plastic barrel, heavyweight plastic octagon barrel. However, this, with its 18-inch barrel, is aluminium. It's actually not the usual zinc, kind of rough zinc stuff that they use. This appears to be machined or extruded, whatever, aluminium, which is really nice. Really nice sort of clean manufacture. Yeah, really nice and smooth metal with a nice, it's like black anodization process on it. Very nice. You can see there the octagon profile of it. Dovetailed in, and it's an actual dovetail rather than just screwed or whatever. You've got your brass front sight. I assume that it's adjustable for a windage due to the way it slides in the dovetail. It's very stiff, but you might be able to hammer it from side to side. It's interesting that it's brass because they did do that, or gold. They did do that a lot on old guns. However, it doesn't work too well in terms of contrast. If you hold it up against something light, it pretty much disappears. So it's not ideal, but it's authentic, which is what I like. So yeah, very, very nice material on the barrel. Moving up, we come straight into a load of trademarks in the common location for a gun of this age. On top of the barrel. Patented September 1858, that's when the copyright patents were going into action. However, they were not made for some time after that, so referring to these guns as an 1858 is a little bit misleading because they weren't made until quite far after that. New Model Army Percussion Revolver, New York, USA, and the only thing that's not exactly true is manufactured by Hartford, which is, even though it sounds very real, is the name of the Airsoft company. You should say made by Remington, of course. So this is, I think it's laser etched right in. It's actually kind of whitey silver in colour. Really nice looking, very, very dainty. So you can see, like, compared to my hand, this is a very slim gun. And it's got these really nice, dainty trademarks on that look really good, very authentic looking. Everything about this is just excellent detail and quality. Right, so rear sight is here. Again, excellent quality, really well made. You've got, you can flip it up to turn it into sort of an artillery sight up to 1 kilometre. However, it does suffer from exactly the same problem as the one on the Marutian does. And when it goes to the top position, it's got a lot of wobble, which makes it pretty much unusable because, again, from that position, you've got a different aim point as when it's in that position. And it's just annoying. So you could fold it open and screw that screw very tight, but then it wouldn't fold down so well. So again, like the Marutian, I'd just leave that alone. Right, so the rear is a blade notch. As you can see, I don't know why I just said blade notch, that doesn't make sense. It is a notch that lines up to the blade. As usual, I'll get a little bit of paper out and I'll show you the sight profile. Okay, so that demonstrates how the gold gold front sight doesn't really show up too well on some backgrounds. So if you've got a light colour background, it's quite hard to see. One thing I do like, it is very fine though. It is very thin and sharp, so it's very precise, which is nice. Let's zoom in on that a little bit. There we go. If I change the colour of the background, let's put a bit of polystyrene there. There is your sight picture. Note that you've still got the original trench cut into the top of the gun. However, that isn't used. You instead use that front sight. There we go. Very nice, precise sight picture though. So, authentic and precise, just how I like it. Okay, so, barrel, as I've said, is metal. Sights are metal. Now we've come to the I can't really think of the right word. I mean, it is the ramrod, I guess. Loading rod, because obviously this is a percussion revolver, and unlike another single action army like the Colt, unlike another single action like the Colt single action army, which obviously takes cartridges, this instead uses your percussion nipples, or your percussion cap for the nipple, and then you'd obviously pour your powder in the hole and get your ball in and use this to ram the ball in. Something I had sort of hoped, or not hoped, but I thought would be cool, is if this could actually push the BB in. So you put the BB on the front and then this would push it in, but it doesn't actually touch the cylinder, so it's just for looks.
I'm sorry about all the changes in camera angle. The light keeps changing in here and it's quite hard to get the gun in focus properly. Anyway, this assembly is of course metal. I believe it's just sort of a zinc, not the highest sort of quality, a couple of seam lines down it. But of course the standout feature is it's got this really cool colour case, hardened look to it. Very colourful, gives the whole gun a bit of contrast, makes it look more of a showpiece than just a straight sort of military design. And it's nice that that does kind of work. It does sort of actuate the rammer there. And it snaps into place. That pin comes out quite easily. It snaps back into place against that little brass pin in the barrel. Taking this gun apart, it's in terms of the barrel, it's very easy. You simply pull that back and there's a grub screw under there and the whole barrel assembly will slide off. The barrel is one piece, it's just a single piece of aluminium there. So unlike the Marushin, which they somehow managed to make in metal, I'm not quite sure how the Japanese laws work because some guns are metal, some guns aren't. This kind of follows the usual Japanese formula, which is plastic body. But I've got to say, it's not a problem for me because it is an exceptionally well-made, heavyweight plastic. I mean, to someone who doesn't know much about it, other than the fact it doesn't feel very cold, you'd probably assume it was metal. So you can see it's got a good finish to it. Very solid, very rigid. It could not be more different from the plastic that the Marushin Mauser is made out of, which is very weak feeling. Yeah, this is a much nicer feeling plastic, very heavy. And the gun does have good weight overall, even though it is very slim. As you can see, it's got a really slim profile. It's practically just a really long revolver. It weighs, I think, 1.8 kilos, just under 2 kilos, which is decent weight. It does feel good in the hand. Okay, that lighting's a bit better. Sorry about all that. Okay. So, very nice plastic, very solid. It's quite an intricate design, the receiver, as you can see. There's a lot going on. And something interesting is that I read that this gun has an individual serial number, which you saw on the in the manual on the certificate. I couldn't actually find that anywhere on this gun. It's not printed there. It's not printed anywhere else. I just couldn't find it until I found that when you pull this down and you pull out the cylinder release latch, which is this pin, it's actually... Sorry, get it to focus on that pin. It's actually printed or stamped into the pin, which I don't know why this is having so much difficulty showing you. There you go, 0107. So the fact that it's got a 0 in front means there's, I assume they've made up to maybe over 1,000 of these, but yeah, everyone has got an individual serial number, and that can't be said for the short revolver version of this, the handgun version, which doesn't have that feature. So let's just wedge this back in. It's a little bit stiff. You have to get the ramrod just right, and there we go. So that does hold the cylinder in place, but it's worth noting, and it's quite important that you know that the cylinder will not come out just by removing that. It's actually screwed in. So the cylinder itself is indeed metal. It's got a very shiny, high gloss finish. So it just adds yet another finish to the gun. As you can see, there's a lot of different colours. There's aluminium black, plastic black, gloss black, brass, wood, brass, colour case hardened, slightly different brass, and another different brass. There's so many different colours going on, which I normally don't like, but there's something very elegant and artistic about this gun that kind of makes all the different colours kind of make it appeal more. Anyway, cylinder is metal, rotates very smoothly. This is of course a single action gun. As you can see, it's got a very light, smooth action that does like to jam occasionally if you don't do it quite right. And of course it is a 6-shooter. So being a percussion gun, you've got your nipples here, for the caps to go on, for the percussion caps to go on. And as you can see, by putting it in half cock, it totally frees up the cylinder and it's free to spin very freely, which is nice. If you compare that to the Tanaka Colt single action, it doesn't really spin, it's quite stiff action. And the whole action does feel more, even though it feels a bit more robust, it is very stiff. Whereas this is a much more sort of slick, light action. Although, as I said, if you handle it kind of wrong, it can jam. And the way to make sure it doesn't jam is when you decock it, you need to hear 2 clicks. So 1, and it did the second one there as well. So if you listen again, 1, 2. If it's done 2 clicks, you know that it's fine. It's when it only does 1 click and then the next shot will jam. So that only happens when you're lowering the hammer. When you're just shooting normally, that doesn't occur. Anyway, metal cylinder, all very well made and designed. As I said, this does follow the Pegasus system. So to gas it up, you'll need to get it to the right chamber, which actually looks like it is on the right chamber, which is nice. There we go. There's the gas fill. And because of that, it does come with an extension piece in the box that allows you to get your gas can, line it all up. It's a bit of a pain, but that's how that works. Unlike some Tanakas, this is strictly, unlike some Tanaka-based guns, or, you know, since this uses the Pegasus system, I can compare. This is strictly a 6-shooter. There's no internal magazine. There's simply enough room for gas and then 6 BBs, which I'll show you how to load now. It is really as simple as you would think. You simply put it in the hole and push it in. Cylinder turns clockwise. Right, so there we go. Unlike the Marushan I reviewed, this has got quite a bang when you fire it. Fire a shot over this direction. Another one. So yeah, quite a crack to it. And the single action, as I said, is very slick, very metallic, very smooth, really nice to handle. Of course, all the crucial parts are metal. Metal hammer, metal pins, metal trigger, and this whole bottom brass section here is metal. Rather than on the Marushan, where it seems to be a solid piece of brass or something this colour, this seems to be a plating, because in some areas it does seem to be rubbing off a little bit back to the silver. But it's kind of an oldish gun. Obviously been used a decent amount. And hopefully you can see it is very small. It's a very, very dainty little carbine. You know, I can kind of cover the whole body up in my hand. Very, as I said, very artistic. It suits a collector very well because it is more of an artistic kind of gun to look at rather than one to shoot. Although that is good fun to shoot. And you can actually see through the top here, you can see the next sort of nipple coming around to be struck. Other side is of course the same, with the addition of that loading gate sort of cutout where you would put on your percussion caps. Something that differs from the original is that the original has got one-piece body and tang, so the receiver and this area is all one, whereas on this gun, to make it a little bit cheaper to produce, they've just simply used the body from the short handgun version and have added a metal insert that fills this space, which is probably a bit more solid, so that's not an issue really. Probably is for the best really, and that's finished in the same shiny metallic metal as the cylinder. Moving back from there, there's not a whole lot more to say other than wood, lots and lots of wood. Quite a long, thin wood stock, very nice wood. It's got these relief cuts that slim it down a little bit for your hand. It's an interesting gun to hold. You've kind of got this support here, which actually is surprisingly comfortable. Something you're going to want to keep in mind, especially on the real one, is you need to remember is because it's a revolver, you've got the cylinder gases that escape through between the forcing cone and the cylinder, which means you cannot, on the real one of course, hold it like a rifle. That will burn your arm, probably, you know, it's not going to blow it off, but it's going to damage your arm from those expanding gases, which is possibly why this was sort of designed like this, because you're meant to sort of use it with two hands. That is the correct way of shooting this gun. Rather than having a hand up front, you sort of support your other hand, maybe hold this, no, that's a bit silly. Support your other hand, I guess, is the best way of doing it. I mean, generally when I shoot it, I do hold it like that, because it's what you naturally do with a rifle, but if you want to be authentic, you should be holding your other hand, or that little hook there, maybe. Yeah. It's a bit of an awkward gun to hold, to be honest, which is what I was about to say when I get to the stock, which has got this very characteristic hook coming out the top, which I find really painful, I gotta say. I mean, I don't know if... no, I can't really get my shoulder in the shot, but that just digs right into my shoulder. I find it really uncomfortable. I mean, if there was any way of doing it neatly, I would chop that hook right off. But obviously, it does add to the style appeal of it. It kind of fits the lines and the curves of the gun quite well. But I find it really uncomfortable. So certainly, even as a target gun, it's not the nicest thing to shoot. Getting to shooting though, internally it is a Tanaka and it puts out a decent FPS. It seems to be shooting around 300 or so, although it's a very interesting thing about this gun is it has the barrel directly lifted from their short handgun versions. So despite the 18-inch barrel, it comes with this, well, probably that's shorter actually. That's got to be a 6 or 7-inch barrel, which only takes up a tiny amount of the outer barrel. And while this gives it quite a nice noise when you're shooting, it kind of echoes throughout the barrel. It's not great in terms of performance, especially since, as you can see, no hop-up. It is a non-hop barrel. So although accuracy is good, range really does suffer. It's just a smoothbore barrel. Luckily, the only thing holding it into the gun is this little dent for a grub screw. So what I did is I've installed an Aeg barrel which fits straight in. So right now it's got a Madball tight bore barrel which goes from here right to the end, which, as you'd expect in a gas gun, has boosted the FPS up a good amount. It still hasn't got a hop up. You could probably fit one if you wanted, maybe an R hop. The guy that sold me this actually had an R hop installed. It did overhop like crazy, so I took it out. But yeah, this has currently got an about 17-inch Aeg barrel in. So even though this isn't the kind of gun that I would normally say has upgrade potential, it actually does. You can fit any barrel you like in here, as long as it fits diameter-wise, you can just screw it in. That does take me to taking it apart though. So if you didn't have the fill tool, or you wanted to fill it a bit more easily, or get inside it for whatever reason, and you do need to take the cylinder out to change the barrel. It's quite a long process. The first time I did it, I unscrewed everything, I took the whole gun apart, and that's how I did it. I've now realised what you can do. The main things you need to do to get the cylinder out is inside here, you've got this screw with the firing pin in between. What you need to do is get one of those weird split screwdrivers or some very thin pliers, work your way around the hammer and unscrew that. It does take a while, but you can do it without taking the whole gun apart. And then once you've removed that pin, pulled your locking thing forward, the cylinder will slide straight outside, and from there you can remove your barrel, get the barrel out, and it is much easier than disassembling the entire receiver, which is quite complex. Well, it's not too complex. It's just a bit different to what most of you are probably used to in a gun. And putting anything back slightly wrong will stop it working, of course. Because single action army, I keep saying single action army, single actions are quite finicky with their mechanism, and anything slightly out of place will stop it working. Overall though, other than slightly complex breakdown and everything, which you do have to expect for something of this age. Of course, the original gun, you know, you're looking 150, 60 years ago, very old design. It all translates quite nicely into an airsoft gun. It's really fun to shoot. Ergonomics are pretty poor, but again, this is much more of a collector replica than something you're going to want to be shooting a whole lot. And yeah, in terms of shooting, it's a lot of fun. Again, no hop-ups, you're very limited. Unlike the Winchester that has got quite a nice hop-up, I would say this you're not going to want to skirmish this unless you fit a nice hop-up to it. You've only got 6 shots, putting out about 300 FPS, which is decent. Obviously gas dependent. The seller told me that he had a cylinder destroy itself with green gas. I am actually using green gas right now, and I've had no issues at all. Obviously, if you really want to be safe, use your low-powered gas. But I've got some decent FPS and no reliability issues or anything using high-powered gas. So just like my Tanaka single action, I'm going to be using Garda gas until something goes wrong, really. So as you can tell, I do like my Western guns, my kind of old-fashioned guns. This doesn't really fall into the Western category technically, since it's much more of a Civil War gun. But still definitely sort of suits the whole look. Any collector, anyone who likes their Western guns, their old guns, I'm sure would absolutely love to have one of these. And they really are excellent replicas. Obviously shooting isn't really the highlight, isn't something that is amazing with these, but build quality is fantastic. Nice wood. Got your lots of nice materials. It has got a plastic body, but everything either end of that is metal and wood. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say obviously recommended, but it's very hard to find these, so I'm not sure if that's really the right thing to say. I'd say if you do see one of these for a half decent price, get it. They do not pop up very regularly at all. There weren't very many made, and the fact that it comes with its own serial number and certificate makes it something really special. And I'm very pleased to have found one of these. And it does go very nicely with my other single action and my Winchester, which is upstairs. Now I do feel like I've been a little bit not very useful with this review for some reason. Obviously, if you've got any questions, just ask me. Hopefully I've covered everything. Thanks again for watching. Hopefully you'll get some more guns on the way to review. I've had a bit of a craving for the new Marui HK45, so I'm going to have that on the way soon. Okay, so thank you for watching. More videos on the way.